Mastering is to be one of the most misunderstood processes in music production. Let's talk about what mastering actually is. At its core, mastering is adding the small but impactful final touches to a mix. If we're working on an album, we can include loudness matching so the album sounds cohesive. What final touches am I talking about? Dynamics control and EQ is almost always optional. Now, how to achieve this is going to be up to the mastering engineer. Some basic dynamics control would be light bus compression, saturation, and some light limiting. All combined, they glue the track together, we add a little bit of excitement to the track, and we're also bringing up the loudness of the track to more commercially accepted loudness. EQ is usually added for more corrective purposes, like if something's too harsh or there's not enough low end or there's too much low end. But sometimes certain plugins or hardware EQs can add just like a little bit of something of their own. They have their own unique sound. So that's something that might be added, but it's not necessary. Mastering is not rocket science. If it looks like it's rocket science, the mastering engineer has questionable practices or they're trying to salvage a mix that wasn't good in the first place. A good mix should be able to stand on its own. It shouldn't need a whole lot in the mastering phase to sound like it's properly mastered. Issues with the mix should be addressed at the mix level. Is the low end out of control? Don't just slap on a multi-band compressor. We want to fix this on a mix level, on an individual track level if possible. Add a dynamic cut on the bass, where it just keeps jumping out a little too much. Do sidechain compression if you feel like it needs that. Do a static EQ cut if that's all it needs. I know some engineers like to have a low-end compressor on the master bus, but it's totally optional. It's usually just an insurance policy to make sure nothing jumps through. Never has a listener, a peer, or like a music publication ever said my low end was out of control. We're talking about my recent music. We don't need to go back about my old music that I mixed horribly when I was still learning. But I'm not alone on this. There's a lot of people who don't do it. And the trick, at least for me, is to get things right at the source, like I was saying. Now, does the mix not sound wide enough? Don't put just a stereo spreader on it. Maybe put a stereo spreader on just the guitars if that's a big instrument that you have. Or if you got synthesizers, take your mono synth, duplicate it, mix up the patch a little bit, humanize it, pan them hard right and left. You're going to get a much bigger sound. You're going to get a much more effective stereo effect doing that rather than just slapping on a Band-Aid like a stereo widener. Now, unfortunately, I have fallen prey to advice like this before. It could be helpful, but again, we're just slapping on a Band-Aid. We want to fix things at the mix level. The mastering phase is not for this. These Band-Aids that we put on the master shouldn't need to be there. Every genuine issue that you have should and almost always can be fixed at the mix level, going to the individual track or the individual bus and fixing it there. Which is why, in many cases, a mix engineer will end up mastering the track themselves. They won't send it off to a separate mastering engineer unless a client insists. Most mix engineers are mixing into a master bus with plugins that they already have on there with a pretty decent mastering chain that serves the song well. It's kind of pointless just taking that all off to send a different dedicated mastering engineer. Now, dedicated mastering engineers do have their value. They offer a fresh perspective because, they have fresh ears. They haven't heard the song before. Or if the mix engineer just really isn't comfortable mastering, they don't mix into mastering effects, that's where a mastering engineer can really shine. However, unless you're on an island and don't really know any other audio engineers, a mix engineer can simply just send over their master to, a respected peer and get that feedback that they would need just to make sure that the master sounds good, that they didn't miss anything. Get that fresh perspective. That way, they have control over the master and they get that fresh perspective from someone they trust. The wrong mastering engineer can decimate a mix. Trust me, I've had it happen to me before. Different topic for a different day. And if a mixer isn't comfortable mastering, it's usually because they're a novice DIY music artist who's mixing their own music and they're kind of just getting stumbled on the mastering phase because everyone makes it seem so complicated. But for those seasoned mix engineers, they know how to master. They're almost all the time mixing into some sort of a mock-up master bus. They know what they're doing. The music industry is weird where they feel the need that a master should be mastered by someone separate. And as I've stated before, that can absolutely decimate a mix, the original intent of the mix engineer, maybe the original intent of the songwriter. So to recap, mastering is a very simple process. We're controlling dynamics and EQ if absolutely necessary, or if we just want to add a little bit of flavor from a hardware unit or from a plugin that just adds something to the master. And again, EQ is 100% optional. It's definitely not necessary. And as much as I'm not fond of the more complicated signal chains for mastering, they definitely do have their value. They can work. My issue is it ends up confusing people. They feel that they need these expensive plugins or like these odd plugins or these interesting techniques that people like to use that are often not necessary at all. Sometimes they're just straight up band-aids for bad mixes. And that's why mastering can seem a lot more confusing than it really is. It is just dynamics control, EQ if needed. It's not about the expensive plugins. It's about a simple and effective signal chain to control those dynamics and get the song ready for distribution. Everything else is just subjective and honestly, band-aids. So what are your thoughts on this? Definitely leave your comments down below. Mastering, everyone confuses it. It's super annoying. That's why I kind of want to make this video. I know somebody who just released a song that sounded great. They're doing way better than me and like probably anyone who will comment. And they kind of just rolled with whatever the mix engineer did. And it sounds great. So I don't know if there's much mastering even going on there. You know, there's just so many people on the internet like to overcomplicate mastering. And it's really a simple process. Anyway, thank you as always for watching. And I do hope to see you in the next video.